All right, so Mr. Ngqulunga is a senior mine manager, a general manager, a chief executive officer, and has now served as a senior vice president of operations at Kroondal. Mr. Ngqulunga is a mining and mineral engineer, and of course, senior vice president of operations. They're overseeing one of South Africa's largest platinum reserves. And Mr. Ngqulunga's stewardship, Kroondal stands as a beacon in the mining industry with an estimated reserve of over 6.2 million ounces of platinum and an annual production of approximately 217,000 ounces. His leadership drives operational success and shapes the future of mining in South Africa and beyond, with qualifications in mining and engineering, and of course, leadership masters. We are so excited to have you join us, Mr. Bonginkosi Ngqulunga. Welcome to the Future Global Leaders Club. We are looking forward to our conversation with you.
Thank you very much, Sisolwethu. Nice being here. I highly appreciate the invite. Although I think you, as you would say, that my age sometimes will show that I'm still talking standards, not great. You'll bear with me and we have to do that conversion. But thank you very much to the organizers, the facilitators, the founders. This is great work. I think where excellence is practiced, it is highly appreciated. I appreciate being invited. Thank you. Hopefully, I will impart some knowledge and skills and do also inspire people to follow engineering. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. All right, I'm going to hand over to you. Bonginkosi and have
sharing the presentation. I can start maybe just the background in terms of where I grew up and where I studied and all those things. Just, I think my understanding really, I think you're gonna have to be courageous in everything you do, whether it is a sport, academic work. In this case, we're really looking at the academic part of it. It does take courage. You're gonna be fearful at times, but you're gonna have to learn to do certain things, although we are afraid, and that will help you in the long run. Are you coming all right? Good. If not, I can share on my side.
Yes, if you give me 5 seconds, I'll share now.
No problem. As we have said, my name is Bonginkosi Ngulunga. Most people will just call me Bongi. Ngulunga sometimes is quite difficult for others. For others, it's not that difficult. I appreciate the introduction that Michelle and the groundwork that Michelle has laid. Hopefully, she has given an insight into where it all begins and all that. And I'll also then take it on from there going forward. In my background, as I said, I was born in 1978 in a place called Umsinga. You can go to the next slide. In KwaZulu-Natal, I grew up there, only really moved to after finishing matric. You can go to the next slide there. In terms of where I was born, as I said, Umsinga, which is northern part of KwaZulu-Natal, closer to Greytown. The later part, the family really moved because of wars or whatever we call it, where the families were fighting. We moved closer to KwaZulu-Natal, to Durban, let me put it that way, in a place called Ozwatini on Ndwedwe, closer to a town called Tongaat. Tongaat is probably maybe 30 kilometers or so from Durban. In terms of where I'll take you through, I'm on the family background. I'll touch on some of my values. I'll touch the academic journey. I'll also talk about some career choices and paths that I've taken and some of the lessons and tips. Then I'll obviously just conclude at the end with some details in mining. You can go over to the next slide, but as I said, grew up in the closer to Durban in a place called Ozwatini, and I basically there was doing what I would call it standard 1 up to standard 5. Over to the next slide.
I wonder if Butluvuko is having some trouble moving on. All right, there we go.
No, yes, now it's fine. First, maybe before I go there, currently I'm a husband, one wife, as a Zulu, sometimes you gotta have to specify, and a father to two teenagers. One is 18 and another is 14. They are both boys. The 18 one is at university, started this year, and the other one is still at high school. In terms of the wife is a chemical engineer who has also honors in metallurgy. As I said, born in 1978 in an area called Msinga, KwaZulu-Natal, later moved on because of wars, but I moved on before even I started school, really. So the school, which is grade 3 to 7, started at Oswatin Combined Primary School, which is rural areas. Some challenges obviously presented themselves in terms of it's far, so you're gonna have to travel, you're gonna have to wake up early, you're gonna have to cross the river. I had to climb mountain. Transport was not that easily available those days, so we had to do that type of stuff. Maybe just to also give a certain flavor. When I was born, I'm born by a single mother, and I grew up with my grandmother, really, who was born in 1914. So you can realize the setup. My mother is working in Pietermaritzburg. She comes back really month end. And I'm with my grandmother really during the week, although not me alone, with other relatives. In terms of balancing the work with my studies, obviously the old lady, there's no way the old lady is gonna cook, be able to go fetch water from the river. There's no taps, remember. I had to do that stuff. So I had to carry 20 liters on my head or shoulder, or use a wheelbarrow later on when the wheelbarrows were easily available. And I had to do that for some time. And I had to learn to do basic things, ironing my clothes, washing my clothes. And I had to do that early because I am growing up with a grandmother. In terms of balancing the schoolwork and the house chores, that for me was critical. I was lucky that my grandmother had a certain insight into terms of studies. She really was passionate about studying, and that she did in part. So she is my role model in this case. She has passed away, but my mother is still alive. My father passed away early this year. I'll come back to that relationship later on. That relationship really had ups and downs in terms of my father, really never grew up, only will visit once in a while. In terms of studies, really did well, I would say from grade 5, started really being able to study. And I realized that the more I studied, the well I was doing in class. I enjoyed that part. I had also friends who were doing very well, which sort of helped, because if you have friends who are with you in terms of what needs to be done, it does help in terms of what you get up to. You challenge one another and you make sure you get things done. I had to move on to a township called Hammersdale later on, because really there was no maths and science in the school that where I was in the rural areas. That for me was critical. When I moved into a township, obviously my grandmother is left in the rural areas. I'm staying with my mom's sisters, two of them. The other one has passed, the other one is still alive today. And they were staying in a not very far from what we call it Unit 6, Hammersdale or Mpumalanga Township. And I attended then Chief Lutai High School, grade 8 up to grade 10. And grade 11 and 12, I had to move. Really, one, because there was the violence in Hammersdale between IFP and ANC those days. And obviously the subjects are also not good. I then attended the Indian school in Chatsworth, which is at Magdalen Secondary School in Chatsworth. And there is now looking at 2-hour drive. From home, I have to take 2 hours with two buses, one bus about 1 hour and then a bus about 45 minutes before I landed school. And there as well, in the Indian school, I did well. If you look at Why did I go to that Indian school? Maybe the short answer is I could not afford the schools that were closer to me. One school that was closer to me was Kloof, I think it was a Kloof Boys High or something like that. I tried to get in, but I had to pay 1,700 Rand. And in those days, 1,700 Rand, I could not afford. And nowadays, 1,700 Rand is not an issue, but that's what I have had to go through in my studies. When I get to Marklands, I still did maths, physics, and economics or business economics. And I excelled in those. Why did I choose it? I was always good in maths. I didn't have really issues. I think for me, really, maybe to be more daring, everybody should be doing maths. It should be a must, really, not maths literacy, the real maths. After you actually do it, and you understand the principle, you can use it, or you do use it for the rest of your life. Is the only subjects really with language that I find very useful. Other subjects, you could use computers nowadays, and you do not have to understand that. But it helps with logic, really, and reasoning. That's why I've said it, for me, I found it to be a most important subject. You do nowadays, when you hear politicians speak, you do understand that sometimes, yeah, understanding of maths is critical, because maths doesn't have any politics, it doesn't have any emotions. If numbers make sense, they make sense. If they don't make sense, you are out. That's how we really make decisions, without really putting emotions into certain things. Maybe just to tie in on the Marklands secondary school, that it was quite a challenging period, because, as I said, you are looking at 2 hours going in the morning. So I had to take a 5 o'clock bus in the morning, and I have to come home also with only gonna arrive around 6 o'clock at home. So you're gonna have to study deep into the night. Let us say we are now looking at 10, 11 o'clock at night. And you're gonna have to do this consistently. And because sometimes you don't want to push too late, you have to now put in more hours on weekends. For example, when I was doing grade 11 and 12, I was actually working, doing gardening. I could not afford certain things, so I was forced to do this gardening work. Although it was paying me 30 Rand for each Saturday that I attended, it was a 30 Rand that was very critical to me, to make sure I'm able to supplement the allowance that my grandmother was sending. In terms of what happens when I'm in grade 11, really, I had some friends, relatives, colleagues, in terms of the environment I was in, or whatever I was doing. We also had church people that we attended church with, and we were a certain group of boys, and we like studying. So it helped in terms of being able to say, here's a bursary document, fill it in. Those days there was no emails, were not really well I would say common those days, and I had to go and open a post box, and I had to able to send letters to a couple of companies. When I'm doing grade 11, I started applying, and they would say, most of them said, Bongi, is still too early. Let us wait for you to be in grade 12 at least. When I'm in grade 12, I really applied. I'm not talking about 5, 10 applications. I'm talking over 100 applications. And after that, I had about 4 bursaries in mining. And I also had other bursaries outside of mining. One of them, for example, was submarine, where I could become a ship pilot, which was a famous career around Durban those days. The other one was SA Force, where I could do aeronautical engineering, which is a mechanical engineering, but dealing with planes. Unfortunately for me, I've attended a couple of tours and took 2 or 3 flights coming from Durban to Johannesburg during the bursaries times. And companies will invite you, would say, we are successful, we would like you to spend a week with us. They will take you to different mines. For example, in this case, I was taken by a company called Genco those days. Nowadays, you guys will know it as Billiton. And I was taken to different mines, Vegelhag, Mata Colliery, and I was also taken over to some open cast operations. Later on, I was taken by Goldfields, also have some tours. Later on, I was taken also by Anglo-American, also had some tours. After these tours, I was really fascinated by mining, and I said, I'm staying in mining. And I decided to choose Genco or Billiton, as we know it nowadays. And the reason I chose it was not because it was better than others, not really. The only reason was that it allowed me to go to first year at varsity without doing a bridging program. To give you a little bit of history, those days, if you were not coming from certain schools, you had to do a bridging program for you to actually go into first year. And I said, let me decide, let me take this one. Little did I know how difficult first year was going to be. And I decided to stick it out, although I had difficulties. Also had a couple of friends. For example, I had a couple of friends who were coming from other universities, traditional universities, which actually did not offer mining or science courses. By the way, at some point in history, some people, especially Black people, were not allowed to do certain technical fields. For example, you are not in mining, you are not allowed to have a blasting certificate, which is a certificate allowing you to blast underground because you are not trusted. And because they could not do it, certain things, although they had degrees from Durban, University of Durban, Westville, they had to start from scratch doing BSc mining engineering with us. And that helped me. It was a great opportunity because these are the guys who I will study with during first year, and they will help me with certain matters which I could not understand. And although I did calculus, I did not understand integration, for example. It took me a couple of trials to actually understand this is what I want and I can do this. But I had to have a courage. Sometimes, if you do not have a choice, courage is the only option. I found it very helpful. It does propel you, although it's something that you do not want to be in lack. But if you know that this is the only option, I have to do this, I have to pass, I have to study, or I must go back to my grandmother in rural areas, because my grandmother did tell me, she said, son, you have finished matric, you now can go to work. And I said, I do not think matric is enough. Little did I know that I was right, but my decisions so far, up to so far, were proven correct. And when I when I finished university, my grandmother was quite excited. She actually even moved from the rural areas to come also to Hammersdale. We had to build her small room outside of my Mamkulu's house and make sure that she's taken care of closer to her other daughters. Maybe just to little bit dwell deep into mining. When you look at BSc mining, what is that? It's all about really making sure that mining, you have to be economical. So it is an economic extraction. I think you heard Sis Michelle talking about the geology part. However, when it comes to mining, we then go deeper into, is this economic or is it not? If it's economic, we connect do certain things. Sometimes because of the decisions we make, it is not economical. Sometimes because of the decisions we make, it can be economical. So that's where the trick starts and certain things we're gonna have to do. Maybe in terms of, for example, the university, you then in mining, when I get there and that's in year 2000 or in year 1997, because I finished in year 2000, I started working in 2001. I actually was amazed in terms of the people, the friends that I did get, For example, the company that we had bursary students, we had colleagues who were also bursary students with us in the same company, and we were able to share notes. We'll be able to sit together. Later on, we'll see one of the photos where I graduate, although we're about 80 students, maybe about 25 or so were Black students. And we're able to actually be able to navigate. Luckily, I managed to finish my degree without failing from first year to fourth year. There were only two of us who never did any other degree before. It was me and another gentleman from Hammanskraal. Luckily, we were friends even up to today with that gentleman. Maybe to look at what are the challenges for me that on the journey that I've seen, you're gonna have to be courageous. You're gonna have to make certain decisions. Those decisions are not gonna be easy, are gonna be difficult, but you're gonna have to have the courage to make the right decision, even if it means you're gonna have to put in more hours from a point of subject choices, from a point of making sure you study, from a point of what are we gonna be able to give in on and don't do it or forsake that. In terms of in my life, for example, when I am at varsity, there are different challenges. There is an issue of, for example, using a computer for the first time at varsity. You'll see one of the photos where I'm sitting in front of the computer, which I only got on second year, by the way, with the company bought for all the students, but only on second year. After they'd seen that we are serious, we have passed the first year at least. And we're able to get this computer, and I had to use it in first year to actually do certain things. Other challenges, those days we didn't have USBs, we had those floppy disks. Every time we have to submit the assignment, the disk does crash. So you have to do certain things early on. So there's a part of, I'll call it time management. You're gonna have to be, you cannot do certain things the last minute, because if you do certain things the last minute, certain things are gonna fall by the wayside. So you're gonna have to do certain things earlier on, you're gonna have to do certain things on time, you're gonna have to be able to also balance. Make sure you see your friends, but make sure you have the right friends. These are the friends that are gonna be able to encourage you, to challenge you, to be able to say, this is a mathematics problem that we could solve. Although I like a situation where the lecturer will solve a certain problem, and later on, 3 days, 2 days later, we have another solution, but giving us the same answer. Because we're able to challenge one another. Maybe we can go over to the next slide. If you look at the challenges that you go through in terms of the university life, you're gonna have to be courageous in terms of making your decisions. As I said, don't be afraid of maths. At some point, you laugh at things that we are afraid of, because being afraid, you cannot live your life always afraid. You're gonna have to face your challenges head on. In terms of the average, for example, in terms of my fun experience, I used to, for example, go to Vestech those days where they used to have a Vestechicon, and I'll leave Vets, and there was more fun there. However, just make sure that on come Monday or Sunday, you are ready and you are able to, you have done all your homework, all your assignments, and everything is done on time. For me, that was critical. In terms of what do we do as mining? There's different fields in mining. Maybe let me go back a little bit in history. Mine engineering actually used to be one thing. There was only mechanical engineering. There was nothing else. Later on, people obviously added certain things: electrical, mechanical, civil, aeronautical, industrial. All those things nowadays will even get more fields that have come in. Maybe to go into mining. Why mining? As I said, I was inspired by what I saw, but it was mainly the companies that sent me around to be able to see. I didn't have a good understanding of mining. Only after those tours with different companies was I able to understand, okay, this is mining. Mining entails being able to deal with different fields. For example, you will have geologists, different types of geologists, exploration, mining, but you will also have mechanical, civil, you will also have the doctors, because the doctors have to make sure that your workers are healthy, by the way. They have to make sure they do what we call medical certificates, which allow them to work at the mine. And you have to, there's the people, when the worker is sick, maybe he's losing his hearing, they will tell you, you have a problem. This worker is losing a hearing. Which place or which working place or which area is he working on? Is there too much sounds in that area? Then you'll have what we call hygiene people. And hygiene people are sometimes mainly mining engineers, but who have specialized in environmental conditions underground. You also have what I'll call rock engineers, which is mining engineers, but who really specialize in the technical side. On technical, what we'll call it strength of material. They say, this is how you have to support this ground. The support must be so far from the face. You'll also have explosives. So you have to be able to understand how you deal with explosives, because you do not want to kill people. So you have to handle these explosives with care. And as I said earlier, only after I got to the mine at around 1997, 1998, where the workers, black workers, starting to actually do certain things in mining, being able to use explosives and being able to become supervisors. Later on, obviously, we started becoming mine managers and general managers and senior vice presidents, which I am today. On the plan that you are seeing there, you are seeing an area between what I'll call Mooinooi and Rustenburg. On your right-hand side is actually Pretoria. If you look at the block at the bottom, on your bottom left, you will see Gauteng, you will see Northwest, you will see Rustenburg. If you go above that, you will see that red line, that is actually N4. You will see Mooinooi, and you will then see different operations. If you look at far left, we are looking at Kusalega 2. If you look at far right, you are looking at a project called Pandora Deeps East 4. If you look at the area that is gray area, that area, I actually manage half of it. That half of it has to produce about 44,000 tons a day, not a month, a day. There is 16,812 mine employees. Out of that, those are mine employees that are working for Sibanye-Stillwater, 16,812. That 16,812 are broken into two. There's a 14,600, which is my own mine. There's 2,184, which is contractors. We are looking at a revenue of about 2.1 billion rand per month. About 25 billion, or about 25 billion rand per annum, but it's about 2.1 billion a month. That's about 85,000 cell phones a month. If you would say that each cell phone, iPhone, costs 25,000. That's a scale of the operation we are running. Guess what? You cannot run it on your own. So you're gonna have to rely on people with different skills. Guess what? There's always gonna be somebody better than you in any field. All you have to do, you have to make sure you direct them, you identify a talent, you manage a talent, you praise people if you are doing well. If they are not doing well, you are able to assist them to identify gaps, and you fill those gaps. That's all, because you have to deal with people. That's probably the hardest thing I have to learn in mining, is dealing with people. It is a more challenging than the technical side. The technical side of calculations, maths, physics, geology, rock engineering, whatever, that one is easy. But dealing with people is quite an interesting field. And it is quite broad. Maybe if I go deeper and just go over to the next slide. Good. there are some questions. So, hi, sir, I wanted asked what topics in mathematics and chemistry do mining engineers use and how do they use them? There's definitely a variety of fields. I would say, for example, in mining engineering, as I said, I did a BSc in mining engineering. There was those days, you could do a diploma at Vestech. Nowadays, thank you, Puti. Nowadays, I think it's a BTech. There is also BEng in mining engineering from University of Pretoria. If you look at, this is a mining value chain. If you look at your far left, you see the exploration and geology. That's where Sis Michelle has spent more time in. So I'm not gonna go there. But we then come in when we have to do design and we have to plan how this mine is gonna be looking like. Because we have to take what Mrs. Michelle is telling us, and we have to overlay what is practically possible from a mining point of view. Is this a narrow reef mining? Is this a massive ore body? Can you mine this safely? That's the most difficult part. And what explosives are you gonna use? And what the prices are. I've seen a gold when the gold price was at 250 rand or $250 an ounce. If you look at where the gold is sitting in now, that's what I've experienced in my life. I've experienced when it is low, I've experienced when it was high. What do you do when it's high? When it's high, you can mine certain areas, but when it's low, you cannot mine everything. So you're going to have to sometimes do selective mining, what we call it. And you have to design your mine for that. That's why that design and planning is critical. Then you look at the drilling and blasting. What type of explosives are we going to use? Other countries, for example, they are very strict on certain chemicals. So they don't allow you to use certain explosives. So those are the things that you're going to have to consider. So you're going to have to work together with mine geologists, mining engineers, electrical engineers, because they have to say what type of power you're going to get. In our case, is Eskom going to give you power, or are you going to have load shedding? What load shedding factor are you putting in? Are you putting in 10% is going to be gone or 20%? What backup power am I going to use? Must I build a solar plant? Must I bring in generators? Those are things that you're going to have to deal with. And what stockpile and what maintenance are we going to use? Then you go to processing. The processing, that's when you're looking at the plant. You are taking the ore that you have mined, you are putting it in a plant, can be a concentrator, for example. That concentrator has to do certain things. It has to be able to produce the quality that you need, because you can mine it, but if you cannot process it, it's not economical, you might as well walk away. Go home and look after your cows. That's it. So if you can process it and you can do it profitably, then you can go over to the next step, which is probably smelting and refining. There, smelting and refining, you are also increasing the grams per ton, the concentrate, and you are also looking at what logistics, for example, are you tracking your ore from mining to the plant? Are you railing it? What is your rent per ton for a rail? What is your rent per ton for a truck? That's where I said the economic part plays a bigger role. Mining engineers, although we do geology 1, we'll do geology 2, we do not go beyond that when I was still doing my degree. However, for example, at Vets, all engineers will do same first year. So you'll do first year, second year with civil engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, you'll all be doing physics 1, physics 2, chemistry 1, chemistry 2, mining 1, mining 2. Only in third year and fourth year, you then specialize in mining, and others specialize in civil, and others specialize in aeronautical. That's how it was. So you're going to have to understand, although you're a mining engineer, we are doing at mining, but you're going to have to understand your processing. You're going to have to understand your smelting, because whatever you do in mining is going to affect your processing. If you're mining at a lower grade, your processing might have to change certain things. So you're going to have to understand how are you impacting the other steps. Then obviously you're looking at your metals accounting and how are you doing that work? Hopefully there's an independent party. There's always a fight between miners and the guys who are doing the processing. So you need an independent metals accounting department. And there obviously cost accounting, your maintenance and support, but your sales and marketing is also very critical, because are you going to do your own sales marketing? Are you going to outsource it? And is there enough customers for the product? Because if there is not enough customers for the product, you might have to do something on your mining. You might have to reduce your production and say the demand is not there. I'm going to have to retrench. Then the labor law comes in. I have to go through a 189 process. When the times are good, I have to recruit. When the times are bad, I have to retrench and follow in 189 and your VSPs. And you now have to deal with your HR people, but who are specializing in labor law, to say, hey, in South Africa, you have to follow this process called Section 189. So you're going to have to be able to recruit, you're going to have to be able to retrench, and you have to do all these things economically. That's basically the balance. Going over to the next slide. In terms of geology 1, geology 2, what's the difference? It's just at what level of details are you going in? Those days, for example, as I said, geology 1 will sort of be an introduction, and geology 2 will be an intermediate, but the person who is a geologist will then go beyond that, where mining will sort of end and don't go. So when I sit with geologists, I have to understand basic, but I don't have to understand the details that Sis Michelle will go to, but I have to understand how it's impacting me from a mining point of view, and I have to understand how is it going to be impacting the plant. So for example, when you work, you'll have your geologist, your mineral, we'll call it your mineral resource department, and they'll be able to say, Bongi, at this price, you're going to have to mine this area, not this area. At this price, we can mine this area. When the price changes, you're going to have to change your mining method. That's why I said an economic extraction, that's the most important part. It has to be economical. If you look at what I'm looking at in terms of on your right-hand side, that is just the value chain, but maybe going into more details. I'm mining an ore, for example, might be UG2 at about 3 grams a ton. I'm taking it to a plant. When I take it to a plant, they have to process it and concentrate it and bring the 3 grams a ton to 200 grams a ton. I have to take that to a smelter. The smelter is going to take it from 200 grams a ton to 5,000 grams a ton. Then I have to do certain things. I have to extract nickel and copper, which is called base metal refining. Then I have to go to precious metal refining, which is extracting platinum, palladium, rhodium, gold, iridium, and ruthenium. So when I look at prices, although people will look at a gold price or a platinum price, I actually have to look at the combination. Like right now, we're getting more from copper, from chrome, because the byproduct is doing so well. So that's why the economics and the understanding of it, because although we might be called the gold mine, or we might be called the platinum mine, but you might be making your profit not necessarily from a platinum. You might be making your profit from something else. And you're going to have to understand your ore body, which ore body gives you a better mix, let me call it. If you look at the photo on the bottom left, that's what just giving you a layout of a mine. You have a conveyor belt going down, you have different machines, and those different machines are your LHDs. This is like a we always see these machines, yellow equipment, whether they are next to the road. You'll have what we'll call an excavator, and you'll also have a machine with a bucket in front. But mining, that's a machine which is in the middle there with a yellow color. That's a LHD. That's as same as a surface machine, but is compressed into a smaller size, because it has to fit in at about 1.4, 1.5 meter width. And so the design is different. There are certain companies which specialize in those machines. So there are mechanical engineers, artisans, diesel mechanics who have to fix that machine. On your right, you have a drill rig there, And that is what is drilling your hole. Those are the holes that you're going to charge with explosives. On your left-hand side, but looking at, let me say, the bottom graph, that's where the processing is part of it. And on your right is when the smelting part. I think the picture on the top, but on the right-hand side is where we are seeing a guy called the rock drill operator. During Marikana, that was a picture that the media in South Africa was using. So most of us, that's a picture we understand. But in reality, there's a picture which is on your far left. So you can drill with that machine. You also, on a certain design, you can drill with a very expensive machine, which is called a drill rig. So that's what really mining is about. All these things, you're gonna have to manage them. And you're gonna have to apply yourself. And there is no way you're gonna be able to manage them and understand them better than some other people. So you're gonna have to be able to delegate certain things and say, you are in marketing, how are we doing? And you're able to analyze the data and make certain decisions. And the marketing person must still advise you. That's how I look at it. In terms of your electrical engineers, for example, they are telling you that Eskom is load shedding. You're gonna have to be able to say, is it economical for me to bring in diesel-powered equipment, or must I bring electrical powered equipment? Because you can have a diesel-powered machine, you could have electrical powered machines. That's an economic part that you're gonna have to do as a mining engineer. And you are looking at from geology to marketing, and you are saying, can I be able to do this business at these prices with which mining method? That's why mining for me is quite interesting, and I'm encouraging some of you that you should be able to pay soon. Maybe go to the next slide. If you look at, for example, currently the recipients in the field of study, we're obviously looking at high school learners who are in grade 12, and obviously students who are already at tertiary institutions. The field of study that we sponsor, BSc Mining Engineering, BSc Electrical. As I said, BSc Mining Engineering, there's different fields of mining engineering. You can be looking at ventilation, you can be looking at rock engineering, you can be looking at the economic part of mining engineering. For example, you go and work at Rand Merchant Bank or those type of banks, and you analyze mining. Electrical engineering can be heavy current, can be light current, because certain things happen. Nowadays, for example, with the machines we have, there's a lot of electronics which we do not have those days. But we are now moving into that space. Then the geology part, which I'm not gonna go to, we do sponsor also the finance, the mechanical, we do sponsor metallurgy, chemical, and we do obviously mine surveying and environmental management. Next slide. In terms of obviously which institutions we deal with a lot of institutions, but obviously there are others that we are currently busy with. Next slide, put. Sorry. In terms of the institutions that we are dealing with universities, mainly in South Africa, and we have to be a South African. This is just a highlight, and how does the process work? And the process, obviously, there's an advert. You're gonna have to make sure you apply. You're gonna have to go through a selection process so that the process is fair. That's how really we do the selection. But as I said, I'm not the one who's working in that field. There are people who are dedicated in HR, dedicated to do this. I'm just highlighting what is out there. Say, what do you need to be qualified for mining engineering or geologist? In terms of mining engineering, as I said, you could do a BSc mining engineering at universities like VETS. You could do BEng, which is pretty much same as BSc at University of Pretoria. You could do BTech, which is Bachelor of Technology at the university, I think, UJ. Sisolwethu?
Yes, but no, I'm just turning on my mic because I see Butluvuko hasn't moved on to the next slide. If you could maybe list those universities that you support, or there they are. All right.
Thanks. Since I think for the university, as I said, University of Joburg, which usually it used to be Vestec and other like Rao, they form University of Joburg, University of Witwatersrand, University of Pretoria, and Northwest University. But these are the things you're going to have to go through and apply and do your own research. Which university do I prefer? I do not necessarily prefer any. You're going to have to make up your mind.
All right.
In terms of, can continue, sis?
No, I didn't want to interrupt you. I want to get to some of the questions, but I'm thinking you're covering some of the questions that have already been asked. So I'm going to, of course, give you the time to complete your conversation before we jump into any questions we may have missed.
No problem. I'm about to finish, really. In terms of what we look at.
And sorry, if I also may just interject that we might need to proceed beyond 6:30. I just wanted to convey that to Sis Olet.
Okay,
yes.
no problem. In terms of field of study, as I said, in terms of selection criteria, it looks at the field of study. We also look at representation. We are interested in female, we're interested in rural people, we're interested in disabled, and we obviously, as I said, we look at the race as well, in terms of making sure we are targeting the certain skills. In terms of, obviously, there should be evidence that you are admitted at a tertiary institution. You must be a South African citizenship or citizen. So those are things that we look at. Would we sponsor people from outside? In certain cases, it does happen, especially people that have already met certain requirements. You can go over to the next slide. Just maybe in conclusion from my side to say, results happen over time, not overnight. Work hard, stay consistent, and be patient. You do not give up because of your first try. You do not give up because you failed a test. You failing a test can never define you. You could always do better on the next test, and you learn from what you did wrong in the previous test. And you're going to have to dream big. As I said earlier on, your dream has to grow. You start being, I wish to be an engineer. I wish to be a driver. But sometimes you say, I don't wish to be a driver. I now want to own my car. I wish to be an aeroplane pilot. At the later on, you don't only wish to be an aeroplane pilot. You wish to own your own flight. You don't, at some stage, you wish to be a mining engineer. But later on, sometimes you wish to own your own mine. Black child, it is possible. And you have to discover how to activate your leadership potential, develop a positive legacy, find resources to fulfill your vision, empower others for leadership, discover your unique role in life. That's basically, for me, some of the quotes that keep me going. You are unique. You can do anything. You have unlimited power at your disposal. Nobody tells you what to think or how to think. You determine the thoughts that go through your mind. You can feed this mechanism in which way you choose. Your thoughts create your reality. We have this power. It is up to you. Maybe just in closing, some of the photos, I think the last slide, you'll see some of the photos in my life. I've gone through different phases. Maybe starting on your top left, that's a mine that's Sibanye-Stillwater owned in the US. The one in the middle, but top, that's me on your right there with my two boys at Kennedy Space Center. Because the young one was arguing with me, saying that I should not do physics. I'm happy with maths, but not with physics. I took him to Kennedy Space Center and I showed him what is possible. We came back there, he was a different person. On your top, on your right-hand side, that's me in a township here called Olivenbosch, where we go and we talk with young people, we talk with children, we talk with disadvantaged, because the Bible said, to whom much is given, much is required. On your, just below the US mine there, that's me in front of the computer. That is my university days. At the bottom, that's me also doing some charity work, where we go on weekends. I take my boys and I say, let us go out and see what difference we can make. At the bottom, that's me next to a conveyor belt underground. That's probably very early on in my career. On the bottom, on the left, on the far right at the bottom there, that's me, that's my two boys, that's my wife on the left. Wine Miami. All possible because of mining. All possible because I didn't give up. If you look on the photo just on the right above the four of us, that's a graduation photo. It says final year class 2000, where I was graduating with my first degree. All this comes with you being courageous, not being afraid to make certain decisions, to make certain choices. It is not how you start, it is how you finish. It is not what happened to you, who left you, who did not give you money, who did not look after you. All that is useless. As I said, I remember that I was burying my father in April this year. We had a relationship. Although he was 70 years old, we only had a relationship the last 3 years of his life. Those are the decisions you're gonna have to make. You cannot be bitter forever. You just sometimes have to move on. Thank you very much, colleagues. I hope you are inspired. I hope you look at what we can offer in mining and geology and other fields in the mining space. As I said, we have doctors, we have industrial engineers, we have psychologists, we have everything in that space. Thank you.
Bonginkosi, thank you so, so much for that really thorough presentation. I think you've really done the thread through everything that you've overcome and how you're where you are today. I think we take for granted just the impact of mining and geology so often. And I think when we are heading out to the big city or we're driving in our cars, we can really appreciate the impact and the role that you play and in creating all those things.